Hi everyone, I wanted to take a little time to talk about this specific article, the Upper Limb Functional Index, Development and Determination of Reliability, Validity, and Responsiveness. While all the articles focused on the DASH, this one focused on the DASH and two others, which may have been a little confusing. So I feel that it is important that you understand the material and the content, and I want you to be able to read these type of articles and critically appraise them comfortably. So I think it's important that we go through page by page of the article together on a video that you can rewatch over and over. But in a way that the content does make sense in order for you to adequately complete your assignment. So let's start. Okay, so the purpose of the article, and I'm going to take this straight from the abstract first, is the current upper limb regional self-report outcome measures are criticized for poor clinical utility, including length, ease, and time to complete, and score missing responses and poor psychometric properties. To address these concerns, a new measure, the Upper Limb Functional Index, ULFI, was developed with reliability, validity, responsiveness being determined in a prospective study. So essentially you are, within this one article, while you're focusing on three self-reporting outcome measures, the main focus is to address the ULFI and see where it fits in with the DASH and the UFSE. It's being compared to the DASH and the UFSE because those have already been determined, those have already been reviewed and critically appraised and researched. So we know where those stand as far as reliability, validity, and responsiveness. But now all three are going to be used. In other words, let's just say the DASH and the UEFS will be used to determine how responsive, how reliable, and how valid the UEFI is. So let's go down and let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing here first. So first and foremost, we're focusing on the self-reporting outcome measures. So when you see SROM, that's self-reporting outcome measures, and I will continue to refer to it as that moving forward. And just to remind you, those three outcome measures that we will focus on are the ULFI, the DASH, and the UEFS. Okay. Let's go on to the next page and let's talk about what you see. So we originally started on page 328, which was the very first page of the article. Now we're going to go down to page 329. From 328 to page 329, the article provides you with some literature review and how they got to the point of focusing on those three SROMs. And looking at starting at the present study has three aims on page 329. I'm going to go ahead and read that. The present study has three aims. First, to develop and validate the initial core quantitative component of the Upper Limb Functional Index through a single-page, three-part SROM, self-reporting outcome measure, with an initial quantitative 25 items focused on assessing HRQOL, and upper extremity dysfunction, a subsequent patient-specific index, section for interpreting quantitative information, and an 11-point visual analog scale for current overall status, compared to the pre-injury or normal level. Second, to concurrently compare the performance of the ULFI with the criteria standards of the DASH and the UEFS in terms of psychometric properties and practical characteristics. The DASH and the UEFS were chosen as they represent advocated and established standards from the peer-reviewed literature. Their measurement properties have been formally demonstrated and independently validated, and they represent both ends of the practicality scale in terms of length, ease, administration, and scoring during patient interaction. The UEFI and NULI were not selected at the initiation of this research and were developed from specific population samples that lacked broad demographics in terms of age and occupation, respectively. Third, to make recommendations on preferred clinical tool and requirements for subsequent investigations. So, I just read a lot. But of course, in that section, you can see that after they provided you a little bit of literature review of how they got to the decision of using those specific 3 RSOMs, they go to tell you the aims and what's their purpose of the studies and what they will be looking at when they're providing and essentially all of their stats and the breakdown of how they decided if this tool, the ULFI, was worth it in a sense. Okay? And worth it probably isn't the best way to describe it, but is it valid? Is it reliable? Is it responsive? That is the better way to say it. So let's go down further and let's talk a little bit about the study design. I'm going to skip right down to the lovely chart that they provided on page 330 so that we can describe what you see here. First and foremost, let's take a minute to just look at this, and I'll be quiet for a second and I'll let you look. At this point, you should have read the article on your own, but just so that I know you're following and you're able to follow along with the video, I'm going to take a pause. If you're not sure what you're seeing here, they're just providing you the breakdown of how they actually completed this study. It's first and foremost is broken down in 3 stages. Stage 1 is item generation. Stage 2 is item reduction, and then they go down to stage 3. Stage 3 is broken into phases, but that's where they actually did the testing of validity and reliability. Stage 1, item generation, and stage 2, item reduction, involved the collection of possible items from previously published upper extremity scales and subsequent reduction of the bank of items to final 25 for the ULFI. And then again, the stage 3 focused on validity, reliability, and responsiveness. And that was designed specifically to look at or evaluate the psychometric properties of the new tool that they're focusing on, which is again the ULFI, compared to the established tools, which are the DASH and the UEFS. So stage 1, where they talk about the literature research and how many self-reporting outcome questionnaires that they viewed and the number of questions within each. Then from there, they went to item reduction and they removed any duplicates or anything that was redundant. And they ended up with 29 self-reporting outcome measure questionnaires looking at 159 different types of questions. From there, they continued on. And after they got to a final number of items or things that they were looking at to focus on for the ULFI, they went down to stage 3, which was actually completing the testing of validity, reliability, and responsiveness. And from there, we can see how they were able to go about that. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about what the N's are. N is the number of subjects. And R is the number of responses. Let's talk a little bit about what responses are, because the article will address any missing responses, and there's a reason. Let's take a look at what these assessments might look like. So this is actually the upper extremity functional index. So this is a UEFI. So if you remember, this is one of those that was removed. I just wanted to give you an example of what they mean by responses. If you have not taken the time to look at or to go to rehab measures or research just what these different type of self-reporting questionnaires look like, they involve a ton of questions. And while they're all focused on the same thing in a sense, the questions may be a little different. That's why they were assessing for redundancy, and duplicates of questions. So when they're saying responses, they're simply saying that how many responses were answered by the patient, meaning was this all actually completed and filled out, or were there sections of the questionnaire where the patient put NA for not applicable or just actually left it blank. Okay, this is an example of the DASH. a lot more individuals are familiar with the DASH. And as you know, the DASH is a fairly long questionnaire as well, but same thing. When they're measuring the number of responses, is how many of the responses of each questionnaire that every patient filled out did they actually complete without leaving it blank or saying not applicable. Now, these are just 2 examples. I did not provide 2 or the other examples or examples of the UEFS or the actual ULFI. You're more than welcome to search for those on your own. Just as a reminder, some of the best places to look for outcome measures and study them a little bit better is the Rehab Measures website, because they will always provide you with a ton of information that you can use, including an example. Now, every outcome measure will not be on here, but it will provide you with an overview for the ones that they did add to the website, which is the majority of outcome measures, I will say. An overview of the key descriptions of what it does, the number of items, meaning the number of questions within the questionnaire, the time that it takes to administer, if training is required, age ranges, instrument review, what it can be used for. I mean, just a ton of information. It is very helpful. So whenever you have a question about an outcome measure, one of the first places that you should always look at is rehabmeasures.org. And you can type in the outcome measure that you're looking for, and it will provide you with a ton of information. Now, let's just go back to the article. And let's keep going. Okay, so we're still in the material and method section. So within this section, again, they're going to talk a little bit about the different stages, stage 1 and stage 2, and how they came about, including where they were first searched for the information. So you'll find that information on page 330. And then they're going to go down to stage 3 and talk a little bit about how they completed their reliability and validity testing. This section is important because it provides a good amount of information. First and foremost, they're going to talk about the different phases within stage 3. So I'm just going to start reading a little bit from here. Stage 3 involved 4 phases. Phase 1, an initial pilot investigation, where they looked at 19 subjects, providing 38 responses total for preliminary assessment of reliability, responsiveness, and the presence of floor capacity and ceiling effect. Phase 2 to phase 4 of stage 3 were designed to assess the psychometric properties of the self-reporting outcome measures using a further, so meaning more patients or subjects essentially. They used another 120 subjects to provide a total of 176 responses. Specifically, they looked at, in phase 2, test-retest reliability with 32 patients, 32 subjects who completed 64 responses total. And in phase 3, they looked at responsiveness, where they used 24 subjects and they answered 48 responses. In phase 4, the internal consistency criterion and construct validity was assessed, and they had 64 subjects and 64 responses, and that information is shown within Figure 1 in Table 1. Now I'm going to stop the video right here because these segments will only be 15 minutes each. From this point, you can go to the next video.